It was a cold evening in a small town in Ohio. The wind blew hard, shaking the old windows of a tiny apartment at the corner of Maple Street. Inside, Sarah Miller sat at a wooden table, her tired eyes fixed on a stack of unpaid bills. The room was quiet, too quiet. Only the ticking clock on the wall could be heard. Sarah worked 2 jobs. In the mornings, she worked at a small grocery store, standing on her feet all day. At night, she cleaned offices downtown. Her back hurt, her hands were rough from hard work, but she never complained. She was a single mother. Her husband had left when their son Ethan was only 2 years old. Since then, life had been a constant fight. In the small bedroom, 8-year-old Ethan was sleeping under a thin blanket. His room had just one small bed, a cracked desk, and an old lamp that flickered every few minutes. He didn't know that while he slept peacefully, his mother sat in the kitchen, wondering how she would pay the rent next week. Sarah sighed deeply. She looked at the bills: electricity, rent, school lunch fees. She whispered softly, "Lord, I just need one more chance. Please help me." Then, she opened the last envelope on the table. Her hands trembled as she read the words, "Final notice, rent due." Tears filled her eyes. She quickly wiped them away and looked toward Ethan's room. She couldn't let him see her cry. She always wanted him to believe that everything would be fine. Sarah stood up, walked to his room, and sat beside him. She brushed his hair gently and whispered, "One day, my boy, you'll have a better life. I promise you that." The moonlight fell softly on her face. She looked tired, but there was still a small spark in her eyes, a spark of hope. The next morning, her alarm rang at 5 a.m. Sarah got up quietly so Ethan could sleep a bit more. She made him a peanut butter sandwich, packed his small lunchbox, and left a sticky note on the counter that said, "Have a great day, love you, Mom." She put on her old jacket, grabbed her bag, and walked out into the cold morning. Her shoes were worn out, and her hands were freezing, but she kept walking. At the grocery store, she greeted customers with a tired smile. "Good morning. How are you today?" she said again and again, even though inside, she felt broken. Her co-workers liked her. They often said, "Sarah, I don't know how you do it every day." She would just smile and answer, "You do what you have to do when someone depends on you." After her first job, she rushed home to cook dinner and help Ethan with his homework. Even when she was exhausted, she sat beside him, checking his spelling words and reading his school stories. One evening, Ethan looked up and said, "Mom, why don't you ever rest?" Sarah smiled and said, "Because I rest when I see you smile." He giggled, and she laughed too. For a few moments, all the pain disappeared. That night, when Ethan fell asleep, Sarah sat by the window again. She watched the streetlights and thought about how life used to be when she was young, full of dreams, full of hope. She once wanted to be a nurse. But now, all she wanted was to keep a roof over her son's head. Suddenly, there was a loud knock on the door. Sarah's heart raced. She opened it slowly. It was Mr. Collins, her landlord. He looked serious. "Sarah, I'm sorry, but I can't wait any longer. You're 2 months behind on rent." Sarah swallowed hard. "Please, just give me a little more time. I'll pay soon. I promise." Mr. Collins sighed. "You've been saying that for months. I'll give you 1 more week, okay? After that, I'll have to rent this place to someone else." Sarah nodded, her eyes full of tears. "Thank you. I won't let you down." He left, and she closed the door quietly. Then she leaned against it, covering her face with both hands. That night, as the rain poured outside, Ethan woke up and saw his mom sitting on the floor, crying. He didn't say anything. He just watched her from the doorway. His small heart ached, but he didn't know what to do. When Sarah noticed him, she quickly wiped her tears and smiled. "Oh, sweetie, go back to bed. Mommy's fine." Ethan didn't believe her, but he nodded and went back to his room. He lay awake, thinking, one day, I'll make Mom smile for real. One day, I'll make everything better. He didn't know how, but something inside him changed that night. Meanwhile, Sarah sat by the window until dawn, whispering the same words she had said for years. "I'll never give up. No matter what." As the sun began to rise, a soft golden light filled the room. Sarah stood up, took a deep breath, and smiled weakly. She had survived another night. Another battle. But something unseen had already begun to change in her life, a chain of events that neither she nor Ethan could imagine. Because that one sleepless night would one day lead to a moment that would make the whole world cry. Morning sunlight touched the small apartment, but inside, it still felt dark. Sarah Miller was standing in the kitchen, holding an empty jar. There was no peanut butter left. No milk in the fridge. Only a half loaf of bread. She sighed quietly and looked at her wallet, 3 crumpled dollars and a few coins. That was all she had left until payday. But then she heard Ethan's small voice from the bedroom. "Mom, are we having breakfast?" Sarah quickly smiled and said, "Of course, sweetheart. Come, sit down." She made him 2 pieces of toast, spreading the last bit of butter thinly across the bread. She poured him a small glass of water and said it was clear juice. Ethan smiled, not realizing the truth. He was only 8, too young to understand hunger, too young to know how much his mother was sacrificing every single day. After he left for school, Sarah sat down at the table. She looked at the leftover crumbs and pushed the plate away. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it. She had to save enough for Ethan's lunch. Every day was a battle, not just with money, but with her own strength. Sometimes, when she worked her night shift cleaning offices, she would stop for a second, holding her mop, and whisper to herself, "Just keep going, Sarah. Just one more day." But her body was getting weaker. She could feel it. At school, Ethan was quiet that day. His teacher, Mrs. Thompson, noticed it. She was a kind woman with short hair and a soft voice. During lunch, she walked over to his desk and asked, "Ethan, are you okay?" He smiled politely and nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I'm fine." But she could see the sadness in his eyes. Later that week, Mrs. Thompson gave the class a new assignment. Write an essay called "My Hero." Tell us about someone who inspires you. Most of the kids wrote about superheroes, soldiers, or famous people. But when Ethan heard the topic, he immediately thought of one person: his mom. That evening, after finishing his homework, Ethan took out a notebook. He began writing slowly, his small hands shaking a little. He wrote, "My hero is my mom. She works 2 jobs. She never rests. She says everything will be okay even when it's not. She gives me her food when she is hungry. She smiles even when she is sad. I want to be strong like her one day." Tears fell onto the paper, smudging some of the words. He wiped them away and kept writing. When he finished, he folded the paper neatly and put it in his school bag. Then he went to his mom's room. Sarah was sitting on the bed, counting the few dollars she had earned from her cleaning job. Ethan climbed beside her and asked softly, "Mom, are we poor?" The question hit her heart like a knife. She forced a smile and said, "No, baby. We're not poor. We just don't have much money right now." He looked confused. "Isn't that the same thing?" She laughed softly and pulled him close. "No, sweetheart. Being poor means you have no hope. But we have hope. And that's something money can't buy." Ethan hugged her tightly. "Then I'll never lose hope, Mom." The next day at school, Mrs. Thompson read Ethan's essay. By the time she finished, her eyes were full of tears. She called him to the front of the class. "Ethan," she said gently, "your essay was beautiful. Would you like to read it out loud?" Ethan looked shy but nodded. He stood in front of the class, holding the paper with both hands. His voice was small at first, but as he read about his mother's strength and kindness, his words became louder, stronger, full of love. When he finished, the classroom was silent. Then one of his classmates clapped. Then another. Soon, the whole room was clapping. Mrs. Thompson wiped her eyes and said, "Ethan, your mother must be very proud of you." He smiled softly and whispered, "I hope so." That afternoon, Mrs. Thompson sent a copy of the essay to the school office. She wanted the principal to read it too. When Ethan came home, Sarah was already there. She looked tired as always but smiled when she saw him. "Hey, champ. How was school?" "It was good," Ethan said, trying to act casual. "We wrote essays today." "Oh really? What was yours about?" she asked, pouring him a glass of water. Ethan hesitated, then said quickly, "Just about a hero." Sarah smiled. "That's nice. Maybe one day, you'll be someone's hero too." He looked at her silently for a moment, then said softly, "I already met my hero, Mom." She didn't fully understand what he meant. She just laughed and hugged him. A week later, Sarah received a call from the school. It was Mrs. Thompson. "Mrs. Miller," she said warmly, "your son wrote something very special. We'd like to display his essay at the school assembly." Sarah was surprised. "Oh, really? What did he write about?" "You," the teacher said gently. "He wrote about you." For a moment, Sarah couldn't speak. She felt her throat tighten and her eyes fill with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. I I didn't know he felt that way." That night, when Ethan was asleep, Sarah found a copy of his essay in his backpack. She read it quietly by the dim light of the lamp. By the time she finished, she was crying, but this time, they were tears of pride, not pain. She kissed his forehead and whispered, "You're my hero too, Ethan." Outside, the night was calm. The world was still full of problems, but for the first time in a long time, Sarah felt something deep in her heart: hope. She didn't know that this small essay, written by her son, was just the beginning of something much bigger, something that would one day touch the hearts of millions. Life never got easier for Sarah Miller. Even after Ethan's essay was displayed at school, and the teacher praised her strength, the bills kept coming. Rent, electricity, groceries, school fees every month, it was the same struggle. Some nights, she went to bed without dinner, just to make sure Ethan had enough to eat. Some mornings, she woke up with a headache so bad that she could barely lift her arms, but she still prepared his lunch and breakfast. One evening, Sarah returned from her cleaning job. Her legs were sore, her back ached, and her head felt dizzy. She tried to stand in the kitchen to cook, but the room spun around her. "Not now," she whispered to herself, gripping the counter. I can't fall now." Suddenly, her vision blurred. She felt her knees give way, and the world around her collapsed. When she opened her eyes, she was lying on the floor, staring at the ceiling. Ethan's small voice called out, "Mom? Are you okay?" Sarah forced a weak smile. "I'm fine, baby, just resting a little." But she knew it wasn't true. Her body was telling her the truth she refused to admit. She was exhausted. Broken. And yet, she had to keep going. The next day, Sarah's manager at the grocery store noticed her struggle. "Sarah," he said gently, "you need to take a break. You look exhausted." Sarah shook her head quickly. "I can't. I have responsibilities. My son needs me." The manager sighed. I know, but you can't take care of him if you break yourself first. She left the store feeling guilty. She couldn't afford a day off. If she did, the bills wouldn't be paid. Ethan's lunch wouldn't be bought. Their small apartment, it could be lost. That evening, as she returned home, Sarah found Ethan waiting by the door. He held his homework in one hand and a small smile on his face. Mom, he said softly, I finished my project today. And I wrote a little note for you. Sarah knelt down and took it from him. It was a drawing of her and Ethan holding hands under a bright sun. Written underneath were the words, Mom, you are the strongest person I know. I love you. Her heart ached. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she held back her sobs. She hugged him tightly. Thank you, baby. Thank you for reminding me why I keep going. Ethan didn't understand how much that small note had lifted her spirits. For a moment, she felt strong again. But deep inside, she knew that the hardest days were still ahead. Weeks passed. Sarah kept working. She pushed through exhaustion, through pain, through fear. But the bills kept coming. Every month, the pressure grew heavier. One cold night, after her cleaning job, she returned home to find a notice on the door. Eviction notice. Her hands trembled as she read the words. She sank to the floor. How will I do this? She whispered to herself. She looked at Ethan sleeping peacefully in his room and felt a mixture of fear and determination. She couldn't let him see her cry. Not tonight. Not ever. Ethan woke up and noticed her sitting on the floor. Mom, he asked softly, climbing beside her. She looked at him and forced a smile. Don't worry, baby. We'll figure it out. We always do. He held her hand tightly. Mom, one day, I'll take care of you. I promise. Her eyes filled with tears. Just focus on your dreams, Ethan, she whispered. That's all I want. Just focus on your dreams. At that moment, something changed. Sarah realized that all her sacrifices, all the pain and exhaustion, were not in vain. She had planted hope in Ethan's heart, and that hope would grow stronger than any struggle. As Ethan grew older, he became aware of his mother's sacrifices. He watched her tirelessly work 2 jobs, skip meals, and hide her pain. He started helping more, cleaning the apartment, doing small chores, even helping her with bills when he could. But he didn't tell her everything he planned. He had a secret dream, a dream to repay every sacrifice she had ever made. Even as a teenager, Ethan excelled at school. He worked hard, not just for himself, but for his mother. Every award he received, every compliment, every success he quietly dedicated to Sarah. He never wanted her to worry about him. And Sarah, despite her exhaustion, never stopped believing in him. She would often sit by the window at night, looking at the stars, whispering, one day, Ethan, one day, everything will be okay. Little did she know, that one day was closer than she thought. Because the struggles, the sacrifices, and the tears, they were all leading to a moment that would change their lives forever. Years passed. The small apartment on Maple Street had seen countless nights of struggle, tears, and quiet determination. Sarah Miller had grown older, but she never stopped working, never stopped hoping. Her hair had streaks of gray now, and her hands were rough and worn from years of hard labor. Yet, every time she looked at her son, Ethan, she felt a spark of pride. Ethan had grown into a young man, tall, thoughtful, and kind. He was determined and hard-working, just like his mother. But unlike her, he had something Sarah didn't know, a secret plan. He had been saving money quietly, working extra jobs after school and during summers. Every dollar he earned went into a hidden savings account. Ethan wanted to give Sarah a gift that would repay years of sacrifices and tears. But he didn't tell her. Not a word. One evening, Ethan returned home from his job at a local tech company. Sarah was in the kitchen, making dinner. Her movements were slower now, but she still tried to smile. "Hey, Mom," Ethan said softly. "How was your day?" "Oh, you know," she replied, forcing cheerfulness. "Busy as always." He smiled, nodding. "I made something today." She looked at him curiously. "What is it?" He handed her a small envelope. "Just a little note." Sarah opened it and found a simple handwritten message. "Mom, one day, you won't have to worry about bills. One day, you will rest, and I'll take care of you. Love, Ethan." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. "Ethan, this is so sweet," she whispered. He smiled, but his eyes held a quiet determination. "Just wait, Mom. One day." Over the next few months, Ethan worked harder than ever. He spent long nights researching, saving, and planning. He wanted to make everything perfect. He found a small house for sale in a quiet neighborhood. It wasn't large, but it had a beautiful garden and enough rooms for them both to live comfortably. He signed papers, arranged the payment in secret, and waited for the right moment. Meanwhile, Sarah continued her daily struggle, unaware of what Ethan was preparing. She still worked 2 jobs, still worried about bills, still tried to shield Ethan from the truth. But Ethan saw everything. He saw the sleepless nights, the skipped meals, the quiet tears. And he wanted to repay her not just with money, but with love, respect, and security. Finally, the day came. Sarah's birthday was approaching, and Ethan knew it was the perfect moment for the surprise. He told her to get ready. "Mom, we're going out today," he said with a mysterious smile. Sarah, curious but excited, got dressed in her favorite dress, a simple blue dress she had worn on their first day in the apartment years ago. They drove in silence, Ethan navigating the streets carefully. Finally, they stopped in front of a small, charming house with white walls and a garden filled with flowers. Sarah stepped out of the car, confused. "Ethan, what is this?" Ethan handed her a large envelope. Inside was a set of papers. Her eyes widened as she read. It was a deed to the house. Her new home. Fully paid. Owned by Ethan. She couldn't speak. Her hands trembled. She looked at Ethan, her eyes full of tears. "Ethan, how, why?" He smiled gently. "Mom, you never gave up on me. You worked every day, skipped meals, and stayed strong, even when life was hardest. This is my way of saying thank you. I'll take care of everything from now on. You deserve rest, happiness, and peace." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. She hugged him tightly. "Oh, Ethan. I don't know what to say. I never expected this." He held her close. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that I love you, Mom. Always." That night, as they sat in their new home, Sarah looked around the rooms she would finally call her own. For the first time in years, she felt relief. She felt hope. She felt pride, not only in the home but in the young man her son had become. Ethan sat beside her, quietly watching her smile. He didn't need to say anything. She understood. Somewhere in the world, someone recorded this moment, a small video of mother and son hugging in the new house. Little did they know, that video would one day go viral, touching millions of hearts. But for Sarah and Ethan, it didn't matter. They didn't need fame. They didn't need recognition. All they needed was each other and the knowledge that love and perseverance could overcome any hardship. As Sarah drifted to sleep that night, she whispered softly, "One day, everything will be okay." And for the first time in her life, she truly believed it. Because Ethan had kept his promise, a promise made years ago, in a quiet apartment, during countless nights of struggle and hope. The small house on Maple Street was quiet that morning. Sunlight streamed through the windows, and the scent of fresh flowers filled the rooms. For the first time in years, Sarah Miller felt truly at peace. She walked through the house, touching the walls and opening closets. Every corner reminded her of Ethan's love and determination. Her heart swelled with pride and gratitude. Ethan sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, watching his mother. "Mom," he said softly, "do you like it?" Sarah turned to him, tears in her eyes. "Ethan, I don't just like it. I love it. I can't believe you did this for me. For us." He smiled gently. "You never gave up on me, Mom. Now, I'll never give up on you." A few days later, a neighbor captured a video of Sarah and Ethan in the garden, laughing and holding hands. It was a simple moment, a mother and son, happy and together. But the emotions were powerful, raw, and real. The neighbor uploaded the video online. Within hours, it went viral. Millions watched as Sarah's story unfolded, a single mother who had sacrificed everything for her son, and the young man who, in secret, worked tirelessly to give her the life she deserved. Comments poured in from all over the world. "This made me cry. What a beautiful story. Single parents everywhere need to see this. Hope is real. Ethan is a hero, but Sarah is the true inspiration." The story caught the attention of reporters and news channels. One morning, a local TV station came to interview them. Sarah sat on the couch, holding a cup of tea, while Ethan sat beside her. The reporter asked, "Sarah, how did you survive all those years?" Sarah smiled, her eyes soft but strong. "I survived because hope never quits. I survived because love for my son gave me strength. And I survived because I believed that one day, things would get better." The reporter nodded, clearly moved. "And Ethan, your mother's sacrifices inspired you." Ethan smiled and looked at her. "Yes, Mom. Everything I am today is because of her. She never gave up. And I wanted her to know, her love and hard work were not in vain." News outlets, websites, and social media platforms shared their story. Millions of people were touched by the simple, emotional truth, a mother's endless love and a son's promise to repay it. Some single parents reached out to thank Sarah for inspiring them to keep going. Others shared stories of their children, saying they were motivated to work hard, just like Ethan. The story didn't just touch hearts, it created a ripple of hope and motivation across the world. One evening, Sarah sat in the garden of their new home. Ethan joined her, carrying 2 cups of tea. They sat quietly, watching the sun set behind the trees. "Mom," Ethan said softly, "I know the world is watching our story, but that's not why I did it." Sarah shook her head. "I know, Ethan. I feel it. You did it because of love, not fame." He smiled and said, "Exactly. I wanted you to rest. I wanted you to be happy. That's all that matters." Sarah took his hand in hers, tears falling freely now. "You've made all my struggles worth it, Ethan. You've made my life complete." For the first time in decades, Sarah didn't worry about bills, work, or the next day. She just sat there, holding her son's hand, feeling the warmth of love and the peace of hope. Weeks later, a well-known inspirational website featured their story. It was called Hope in Action, a son's promise to his mother. People from around the world shared it, praising Sarah and Ethan. The comments were endless. "This is proof that love conquers all. Never give up. Never. And this is why. Sarah and Ethan are living proof that sacrifices are never wasted." Sarah read the comments aloud to Ethan one night. They laughed, they cried, and they hugged. "I never thought our story would reach so many people," Sarah whispered. Ethan smiled. "It doesn't matter how many. What matters is that hope is real, Mom." And love always finds a way. Years later, Sarah and Ethan looked back on their journey, the struggles, the nights without sleep, the tears, and the quiet moments of hope. Every hardship had been worth it. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every skipped meal had led to this moment. Sarah held Ethan's hand, smiling at the sky. "One day, everything will be okay," she said softly. And finally, for the first time in her life, it truly was. The mother who never gave up and the son who kept his promise had created a story that touched millions, a story of love, hope, and unbreakable bonds.